All right, guys, welcome back to Decoding Babylon, and we got a real treat today. We got my boy Luke, voice of reasons with an S.
And with an S. Official.
I finally got him on the show, and Luke is one of these guys that I hooked up with early on when I first got on TikTok. I loved his videos. We've done a bunch of live streams together.
Probably.
Anyways, Luke, welcome to the show.
Thank you, JT. So glad to finally join the podcast. We've been talking about this for whatever months now, even. So thanks for having me on finally.
Well, I guess that's the good and the bad of actually being a busy content creator. It's like it is difficult to do other people's shows or do like I've got this thing I've got to work. I've been working on this thing forever, but I know you're busy, but obviously it does kind of stink. Like when you do get focused on your own work, it's almost like, hey, I've got a video that's going viral. Did you know that? And you're like, no, I didn't, because I'm not even scrolling the For You feed. I'm like making videos.
Yeah, it's the amount of work that we have to do. It says in the Bible that the harvest is great and the workers are few. And the battle is happening right now on social media, the battle for the hearts and minds of men. And we are in war, spiritual war. And so I could do 25 hours straight on science and the history of this occult system into the truth of biblical history and biblical science. And there's so much information that needs to be made and presented in this short form content that you said being busy, I feel like I can't possibly get to the bottom of the well of information that needs to get out. So yeah, we always talk about doing these kind of things, but it's always like, I have 12 videos I need to make right now. So busy, and we got a lot of work to do.
You know, I was talking to this older gentleman in the gym today, and I shared Ancient Angels with him, and I said, you need to check this out. And I told him I had a podcast and stuff, and he's like, there's so many podcasts and there's so much content, and there's like, how can you possibly fight for the attention versus all the options? And I was trying to tell him, and I was like, obviously, and like I know you can relate. And I said, well, for one, you have to be very consistent. Obviously, you got to have, you got to have something interesting to say. I mean, you do really have to stand out. And it's like guys like us, we know like we have bigger projects we want to do, but like we know that we have to put out 1 minute snippets of it because you're fighting for people's attention. And it's like, if you're not constantly out there, well, like they're watching other videos, and obviously they might be listening to lies.
Well, if you have a niche and you are dynamic or well-versed in your niche and you have a way to present it that people want to watch, you will garner viewers and garner followers. And so what I think the thing that's interesting, and you and I talked about this months ago, is we used to watch guys like J.R. Church and, Chuck Missler or whatever. And I realized, I think it was 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, you and I talked about it. We've become that. Those were our mentors. Those were the people that inspired us. And they're maybe still doing books. They may have passed. They might be on YouTube, but they're not on TikTok, right? And so this is like, we have to take this information, what we've learned, and package it in a way. And it's to me, this is the most important thing you could possibly doing on social media or any media, which is explaining the truth of this reality. Jesus is the truth. He is the basis of this reality. He is the word that created this reality. Everything leads back to Jesus. Everything leads back to the biblical narrative and the biblical paradigm in this battle between God and the devil. So it's like, yeah, random guy in the gym, there's a lot of content creators, but are there a lot of content creators explaining in truth the very nature of this reality, our true history? This is more important than girl teaches you how to make biscuits or whatever. I mean, not to marginalize her channel, but yes, this information, and there's so few qualified apologists and individuals that can walk the line between conspiracy and truth and present this information in a way that people can trust it, right? There's a lot of sensational stuff out there. And so if you can't question the motives of, which is basically the devil's system and the devil who is the father of lies, if you're not able to question that, you have a half version of the story. If you question it too much and you get really far into conspiracy, you become untrustworthy. So that niche that we're in of like, look, this is what's happening. This is what God says. This is what the devil's doing. You guys have to be awake to what's going on, but not being sensational, delivering the truth from a contrarian standpoint. It's a very niche thing. And you and I have done, I mean, at the very beginning when I talked to you, I was like trying to talk you through not getting banned. If you remember, I'm like, you don't want to get banned. And, you know, I was there, I was you 6 months ago, and you have your niche and you excel at it. And I have my niche, and there's other people that have their niches, and we just need to all go out there because the dinosaur media is dead. CNN and that whole thing. People are getting their content now from individuals that they trust. And a lot of times it's older guys, you know, we've been doing this for a long time, who are well-researched, whether it's scripture or history or whatever. And so if you have this multi-decadal walk with Jesus, you can see what's going on. You come from a place of being interested in teaching people about the truth and not just making money. It's very impactful what's happening right now. It's not that corrupt. When the Bible says beware of corrupt communications, I think that was talking about the media, and we have this new version where people that you trust can deliver that information, and we're tasked to do it. So it's an honor, and I think you do it very well, and I love fighting alongside you in the information war.
Amen, brother. Yeah, that's good too. It's funny though that I was just like, I laughed about one thing you said the one time, because obviously you were focused more on conspiracy at the beginning, and obviously I did too as well, like believing we're like in the end times, and it's hard not to do that. But it was funny. So like you were saying, oh, well, I'm going to do more biblical apologist stuff. And I remember the one time you were saying, I'm going to stay away from the conspiracy stuff. And I was like, but Luke, you literally said they're trying to teach us wrong on purpose because the devil runs this place. It's like, you know, that would be conspiratorial to people. Oh, yeah. You know, like that. You understand that they're not just wrong, but they know that they're wrong. And obviously because they're in rebellion of the true creator God and Jesus Christ, they literally are trying to obviously pull the wool over our eyes, deceive us. Amen. Even you could even say do some magic on us, which is exactly why I got Luke on the program. Is we did a live, like probably last year, talking about science and magic and how the lines are more blurred than you might imagine. And Luke actually has done like a series on the fact that a lot of the magic, the science came from Decoding Babylon. It came from Babylon, like the mystery schools. Mm-hmm. So Luke, why don't you tell us about how Babylon has influenced our education and our science?
Yeah, so I didn't get out of conspiracy. I got out of kind of political, medical, that kind of conspiracy. This is the conspiracy. This is the conspiracy that the creator of this reality is the author of the Bible. The God that wrote the Bible told us the true story of creation, how we got here, what we're doing here. A wool being pulled over our eyes to believe that the universe created itself, this evolutionary thing. We're all just animals in a meaningless universe. Strict scientific materialism is the conspiracy. They've forced the world to believe a lie about this reality intentionally to dissuade us from the God of the Bible. And it's an interesting correlation. It's not just a homonym that scientific materialism begets consumer materialism. Because when your whole worldview is based on matter, everything is just matter. Well, then eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. We're just here. We're just, atoms smashing around. There's no such thing as spirit, whatever. So when Jesus was here, he was very much opposing this scientific consumer materialism. He was very specific to storing your treasures in heaven and working for the kingdom. And so the system, the individuals that run the system, and it doesn't have to be necessarily even a conspiracy. It could just be Jeff Bezos or people that want all of the money. In order to get money, you have to spend money on something. So you have to be wrapped up in your identity being material. And that starts with believing that your reality is material, right? Madonna said, we are living in a material world, so I am a material girl. Right. I'll probably get copyrighted for even saying that. But that's it. It's a 1-for-1. Because we're in a material world, I'm a material girl. So this scientific philosophy that we are under, this spell, with no surprise, originates in Babylon. This is the reason I believe it's called Mystery Babylon is because it's being practiced by people unawares. They are in it. They are initiating their children into it. Halloween, Easter eggs, winter solstice stuff. We're in Washington D.C. Who is Columbia, the goddess? All of the craziness that's going on. The phallus, Washington Monument, pyramids everywhere. Well, this is, I know Egypt and Babylon are different, but I would even say that Egypt.
No,
was
they're not.
Babylon.
I don't believe they're different. Actually, I think that they're the same. Like all these empires mimic the same one. It's all this. It's this repeating one world empire, which is interesting. You say like mystery Babylon, and it's like because people don't even realize they're in Babylon. And I read this book recently, and it was about like the hidden American empire, because they don't ever say America has an empire. Do you ever notice that? But when you find out we have territories all over the world, we got bases everywhere, and it's like because colonialism, empires are not good, right?
Right.
So it's so it sort of is interesting that you have this one world system that's obviously kind of run by these certain people, but guess what? It's totally not connected. Nope, it's not Babylon whatsoever. Or is it?
It is. And I do want to go into, we're going to try and make this as close to an hour as possible, but I want to share something with you in the vein of what we're talking about. I'm a big fan of Josephus. And if you read Josephus chapter 4 of Antiquity of the Jews, it is concerning the Tower of Babylon and the confusion of tongues. So the sons of Noah were three. Remember, Josephus was a historian. He was, the atheists want to say it's a fairy tale, whatever. He's telling the history of these people who actually existed. So we go down and it says, now it was Nimrod who excited them to such an affront and contempt of God. He was the grandson of Ham, the son of Noah, a bold man of great strength of hand. He persuaded them, the people, not to ascribe it to God as if it was through his means they were happy, but to believe that it was their own courage which procured that happiness. This is related to scientific materialism as well. He also gradually changed the government into tyranny, seeing no other way to turn men from the fear of God, but to bring them into a constant dependence on his power. When Jesus said you can't serve two masters, you love one and hate the other, you can't serve God and mammon, Jesus knew what he was talking about, and he wasn't talking hyperbolically. You serve God or you serve mammon. And if your worldview is based on our true history, is the biblical account, the flood, Adam and Eve, etc. Got that order wrong. Adam and Eve, the flood, Jesus, etc. Then you serve God. This is what Jesus was talking about. If you don't believe in God, you serve what? The system. And all of the belief systems, atheism, the Babylonian systems, the Persian systems, the India system, all of these are false religions. Sorry, I don't mean to offend anybody. And when you forfeit the truth of this reality, which is that God created it, you are in a paradigm where you are now willing to accept a tyranny because your God is going to be the state. Nimrod talked about this. So he gradually changed the government into tyranny, seeing no other way to turn men from the fear of God, but to bring them into a constant dependence on his power. Communism is about this. Militant atheism. You don't believe in God, you believe in the state. That becomes your God. So this is necessary when this whole natural Babylonian magic we're going to get into. Okay, he said he'd be revenged on God if he should have a mind to drown the world again, for he would build a tower too high for the waters to be able to reach, and he would avenge himself on God for destroying their forefathers. Right? This is God destroyed Nimrod's forefathers. This goes back to the Nephilim, and he was going to use technology to outwit God, and everybody was living up in the mountains. It says right here that they were greatly afraid of being in the lower grounds on account of the flood. And so they were very loath to come down from the higher places to venture to follow their examples. So Nimrod's in the plain of Shinar, and he says to everybody, come down from the mountains. And they're like, dude, we got flooded. We're not doing this. We're up here trying to serve God, not to get flooded. And he's like, oh, you're doing your own good by your own hands. Come down to the city. Urbanization. God says, be fruitful, multiply, spread out on the earth. If you go out and you have land, you have wealth, you have biblical families, you have your livestock, you gain wealth, you have freedom, you have independence. If you go in urbanization where you can't have your own land, your own freedom, you're dependent on the state. He says, come down to the city or come down to the plains, get out of this high place. God can't destroy us. And we're going to technologically beat God, so he certainly will not destroy us. So Nimrod was in the spirit of the one world system, the antediluvian system. Sorry, I know I'm off the rails here, but before the flood, let me close this really quickly. Before the flood, there was one landmass, what we are taught in secular sciences, Rodinia, Pangea, the one landmass. In God's judgment, God broke the continents apart. As part of the flood, the continents were broke apart. Before the flood, they spoke one language. So we had one world, one landmass, one language. After the flood, we now had 7 land masses, but still one language. Then this starts happening again. Nimrod, possessed by the fallen angels, his forefathers, whatever, is going into a scientific tyranny, technocracy. God confounds their languages. So now everybody leaves there speaking a different language. So now we're separated by continent and by language. This staves off this New World Order until when? Now we have the internet, and now we have basically one tongue again, and this whole thing's coming back up. So it's all Nimrod, it's all Babylon, and the scientific narrative stems from this. And this is proprietary information I haven't heard anybody talk about, and I'm really excited to share it with you today. Did you want to comment on that before I do?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and obviously that's what I believe. And as somebody who believes like that, eventually the fulfillment of all the prophecy is a return to the Tower of Babel, and it's like it is like the people probably don't get it because obviously in Genesis 10 it's a very short account. Obviously, you get more in Josephus and some other accounts, but like the idea that man coming together, it's like, oh, what's wrong with that? Because like the idea of man coming together, because it's like we are coming together because we don't need God anymore. And I think that is obviously what you see manifest through the science, and like specifically guys like Noah Harari, when they are like, we can make it rain now. And obviously it's funny that he kind of talks about that kind of stuff, and then they deny the whole weather modification.
What did he say right before he said we can make it rain? Do you remember? Do you know the line he said just before that?
Oh, did he say that? Okay, you guys say it.
We are better than the God of the Bible. That's what he said. And then he said, we can make it rain.
Didn't he also say, and I remember you saying this, and this was cryptic, I had the chills just thinking about this, when he was saying that God is dead, and he's like, and now we're just trying to bury the body, or wasn't that the phrase he used?
Yeah, that's what he said. He said, God is dead, we're just having a hard time getting rid of the body.
And so, like, if you think about it, and of course, when you said that, and I think was your wife who made the connection with the dots?
My brother,
okay,
did, yeah. Or my wife.
And he was saying,
one of them. Yeah.
And you're saying like, so like the body of Christ. You think about like the body of Christ would be like the church, and you're like, oh man, like that's like, yeah, that's mind blowing. Like, okay, that sounds very close to what the Book of Revelation says about how they're going to have the beast is going to have authority to conquer the saints, the body of Christ, and you're like talk about the. And this guy, obviously, he's all about the religion of science. And it's like, so like,
priest,
yeah. And so like somebody who's an atheist, like who claims to be one anyways, he does speak awful religiously about something that should not be religious. Correct. Right. I mean, so the answer, the question is, the question is why, Luke? Like, I mean, like, so because of what you're about to say, I'm sure.
Right. Why would a guy who is, a world leader, a world scientific authority, why would he spend so much of his time blaspheming his God? He's actually Jewish, because of the spirit, whatever this Nimrod one world system spirit. He is one of the, I mean, there's dozens at this point, priests of the religion of science. I mean, not to get too weird, but did you see that Hawkins was on Jeffrey's Island? Did you see that? I mean, I probably can't say that kind of thing.
I did actually see that, and you're like, okay, so isn't that kind of interesting about how what Psalm 14:1 says? The fool says in his heart, there's no God, because he does no good. All his deeds are wicked. It's like, so the guy who's saying there's no God, there's a reason he says that, because he doesn't. Because he does not want there to be a God, because this guy's actions are completely depraved. And it's like that, wrong doctrine, and obviously atheism, leads to wrong living. Right. The people think about like the idea that, oh, well, morality didn't come from God. It's like, yes, it did. Even I saw a friend post a clip from Dawkins, and he wrote something in his book about saying like, the evolutionary, like for survival of fittest, we have this morality. When you're automatically assuming that the morality just came from nowhere just because that's the best way. And it's almost like, the morality that we're given instinctively came from the image of God. And obviously that's why it's correct. It's not because it's ambiguous or it's just like, I mean, obviously it makes no sense what he said.
The biblical narrative, which is the truth of this reality, versus what they taught us. You just mentioned evolution and survival of the fittest, that idea that they taught us that we're animals in a meaningless universe and that we need to be the most fit and cunning. I don't know if you've ever had chickens or anything more like farm animals, cats and dogs, or kind of domesticated, but real like wild animals, they're bananas. They'll eat their young, they'll do whatever they need to. They don't care. They have no ethics, no morals at all. So the idea that they want us to believe that we're animals and have survival of the fittest be the law, survival of the fittest and do what thou wilt are the only laws that we're supposed to live by. Check this out, because we need to get back into the science, or else, we'll just you and I could do this for hours. But okay, so the God of the Bible says that he spoke this universe into existence. We're speaking right now. Speaking is a result of information, of consciousness. You're assembling, you're creating. You can sing, you can say peaceful things. You can create. It's a very creative, forward motion kind of thing, and it's very intended. You speak, you intend to speak. Speaking the universe into existence is what God said he did. The world system, the Babylonian mystery religion scientific origin story, is that the universe exploded into existence. Chaos, absolute chaos, chaos, right? Nuclear furnace, nuclear everything. So God speaks nuclear chaos. According to the Bible, the first thing is the earth, and it's covered in water, and the Spirit of God hovered over the waters. This is very peaceful, right? The dark, beautiful waters, the Spirit of God moving over it. According to the official narrative, fire, explosions, comets, the earth is formed in fire. If we were to Google how was the earth created, you would just see a fireball, right? So water and peace, fire and destruction. It says in the Bible that we are made in God's image, in the image of the living God. What does this mean? Potentially looks, maybe bipedal, maybe just to be able to speak, maybe be able to create, maybe having emotions, love, things like this. Whatever, we're made in the image of God. How beautiful. They say we are mutated chimpanzees. Chimpanzees are the most vile, horrific creatures out there. The things that I don't know if you're familiar with the things that they do, but they will do the worst things you can imagine, the chimpanzees. And they're disgusting. And we're supposed to be mutated version of chimps. So in every version, whatever God said, the enemy system is the opposite, including Jesus said, whoever's greatest among you will be the least. You are supposed to serve. You're supposed to lay down your life, give them the thing. They teach survival of the fittest, the most cunning, ruthless, abusive. I mean, according to Darwinian evolution, Jeffrey Dahmer wins. He did great. Yeah, why not eat people and do whatever you want to? Because you're an animal. And he even said, I don't know if you saw this in prison, not that I'm vouching for Jeffrey Dahmer, but in prison he said, you turned me, he's talking to his dad, you turned me onto that creation science ministry. It might have been Ken Ham, might have been Kent Hovind, who knows? And he realized that evolution was a lie. And he said, I wouldn't have done what I did if I would have known that the Bible was true. I thought I was an animal in a meaningless universe. That's why I did the things that I did. I was lied to. Now, I'm not saying that gets me off the hook. I'm going to face judgment, whatever. But he literally said, because of what he was taught as a kid, it justified in his mind that he would do this. And why wouldn't it? If you're an animal, you're not going to be mad at your chicken for eating the other chicken. It's animals. So we aren't animals. They told us a lie, and it's rooted right in Babylon. Did you want to say something before I go into the Babylon? So this is a cool little nugget. You're going to like this.
Well, no, that's absolutely correct. Because obviously, if you look at the secular science that's been taught in a way that obviously diminishes the idea of a creator, and you see that through the school systems now, and it's like you look at the world we live in right now, where obviously this is what they teach, and there's no truth. The truth is what you make it to be. It's like it's a social construct. When if you believe in the Bible, obviously Jesus is the truth, and truth comes from God. So therefore, we cannot manipulate the truth in any kind of way. There's an ultimate truth that does not come from us, and that's why we can't change it. Mm-hmm. But what we have here in society is you've got a big mess. Mm-hmm. You got a giant mess. And people just going every which way. And then it's like, yeah, so isn't that a kind of a contrary message to say, you're just an animal, but I still want you to not be racist. I don't want you to do all these. I want you to respect everyone else. And it's like, why? You just told me I'm an animal. I don't like obviously aren't they allowed to be tribal? Aren't they allowed to be, survival of the fittest? Well, I want to group up with my tribe or my wolf pack. Mm-hmm. One man wolf pack. But if I want to be with a wolf pack, I want to dominate. Right. Okay, but you're telling me now I can't do that. So don't you understand that those things are conflicting ideas?
Well, so two things there. Modern racism is rooted in the theory of evolution. That's Absolutely. Where it actually stems from. Now, there is biases, right? You mentioned tribal stuff. And it was actually a good thing at one point to just not blindly trust the tribe. We lived in a very barbaric time for thousands of years. So oh, that tribe looks cool. Oh, they took everything. Our women, our children, everything we had, they plundered us. So to go, I'm not going to trust you just because you're there. You're going to have to show me I can trust you. And this is a human instinct, so that's fine. But what happened is through Darwinian evolution, and Charles Darwin was a racist, and he was cousins with Galton, who started eugenics, and he said, his book, The Origin of the Species, the full name of the book is The Origin of the Species, or the Preservation of Favored Races in the Struggle for Life, or the Struggle of Life. The preservation of favored races. What favored race? The white European male. They taught Darwinian evolution. They embraced it, the white aristocracy, the white European aristocracy, because they could use science to justify them being a higher evolved being and to discriminate and abuse and keep captive basically the colored races. This was the thing that they did. So the eugenics, ethnology, they had Otabanga locked up in a chimpanzee cage. He was just an African pigmy. The New York Times was in on it. Madison story. Grant, William Fairfield, William Henry Fairfield Osborne, that's the one. All these guys were absolute racist eugenicists. The creation of the American Natural History Museum, a thing you could look up is the first eugenics conference at the American Natural History Museum. At the time, they had no science to support this theory, but they were going from the religious control to scientific control, which, like you said earlier, that line isn't just hard to blur. It's the same line. They were going from religious control into scientific control. And the science said, we are the highest evolved humans, and therefore we get to steal, kill, and destroy. We get to do whatever we want to because we're at the top of the pyramid. That's what they have been teaching. So racism, Jim Crow South, all of that is rooted in eugenics, rooted in Darwinian evolution. So yes, they did it. And then they say, because it happened, Christians are bad, whatever, some other thing. So the other part of that is the creation of this reality being built by an individual who is interested in what you do, and you have this accountability to the living God. That version, it doesn't behoove the individuals who want to do the most deplorable things ever. It says in 2 Peter 3 that they deliberately forget that the world was destroyed by the flood, was created on water and destroyed by water because of their evil deeds, basically. So in the best case scenario, you have legitimate psychopaths, and this is like you don't have to be a killer to be a psychopath. People on those psychopathic spectrum are just really consumed by their own interest. A lot of corporate leaders, a lot of politicians are this way. You have psychopaths who don't want accountability from the living God, who want to do what thou wilt. So in the best case scenario, they want to get rid of the idea of God because they want to justify their action. In the worst case scenario, they're in bed, literally or proverbially, with the enemy of God, and they make this Faustian agreement to get into basically the education system, the teaching everybody they're animals in a meaningless universe, and this idea of, just like what Nimrod said earlier, in that if I bring them into a tyranny, they will refuse God. And it's a one hand, a glove in hand fit, and it's always going to happen. And it's always going to work. So we went from religious control, like Egypt, Babylon. These entities weren't favorable to God's people, right? They weren't on the right side of history. And remarkably, they're all gone. It's one of the most remarkable pieces of evidence that the God of the Bible is the true creator and the historical account of the Bible is trustworthy, is that the Jewish people, who were always the oppressed and the minority and everybody hated them, they're alive and well today. And all of the civilizations that had oppressed them have fallen apart because God preserved them, obviously. So the historical account of the Bible is a separate belief system than everyone else in the world. Everyone else has a similar kind of story, and the biblical narrative is a separate one. God created this, and we get this account in the Genesis. The people that are in charge don't want us to believe in that, and it's my contention that it's rooted in this long battle between God and the devil, and basically Babylon and Christianity, or what do you want to call it, Judeo-Christianity, Babylon v. the God of the Bible. And so, so for the version that they've taught us is from Babylon, and I know you're going to say something, and I'm going to say something, but after you retort to this, I got to show you this research that
I think I think at the end of the day, it's like you have the creation rebelling against the creator, So obviously like Jesus didn't start a new religion. Like Jesus was it was always about him regardless. And it's like, that's the thing. It's like, so, but yeah, what's interesting too, is like that if the science, a lot of racism was based on the science. And isn't it interesting how, like, again, like bring up Yuval Noah Harari, because he's one of the best examples of like just saying that saying the ugly things out loud. He calls certain people, useless eaters. And it's kind of like, we're going to have this
class.
AI, but now we're just going to have to now we're going to have all these people who just are just taking up space. And then they push this idea of population control. And it's like, talk about really somebody who is, okay, so they've said God doesn't exist, but now they're basically saying we are God because we get to decide who's a useless eater and who's not, who stays and who goes. We're going to control what the world does, the earth does, because we know better. Just trust us. And it's like, again, like as you said before, like the scientists and the priests, the witch doctors, the shamans, just, like obviously we're getting to semantics and obviously the times and we live.
Right. So the idea of them wanting to become gods is nothing new, right? The serpent said to Eve, if you eat this apple, you can become like God. He's always left this carrot on the end of the stick. You can become like God. They are using technology, just like Nimrod began to become a Gibborim through some sort of science, occult magic. These Ray Kurzweilian, Yuval Noah Hararian kind of figures, they plan to use science to become gods. They want to extend their life. They want to use transhumanism. They want to augment their brains. They want to become gods. Interesting, the movie Lucy. If you remember the movie Lucy, Scarlett Johansson, she ends up ingesting all of this drug thing. So basically through some sort of technology, she becomes a god. And in the story Lucy, aptly named, she goes back in time and sees the little chimp and she touches the finger of the chimp. And this is really seminal moment. She goes, so after technologically she became a god, or like a little g god, she went back in time, touched fingers with Lucy the chimp, which is the same Michelangelo picture of God touching man, gave Lucy the desire or technological advancement to become humankind. So Lucy, named after Lucifer, the movie, goes back and touches Lucy, the missing link. I just did a YouTube video yesterday on Donald Johanson, the discoverer of Lucy. He's absolutely a God-hating atheist, absolute priest of his cult of secular science. Just blasted his whole narrative yesterday. But they named it Lucy, and they said they named it Lucy. He named it Lucy after Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds from the Beatles. So it's like, okay, the Beatles were, I'm sure you've done this research, the Beatles very likely, or very possibly, Sgt. Pepper was Aleister Crowley. So Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band was the Beatles. They brought a spiritual revolution over here, including Eastern mysticism and rebelling against Jesus. When John Lennon said that they're bigger than Jesus, the 2 lines before that was Christianity will die. Christianity is dying. This will be proven by time, and we're bigger than Jesus. So even if they named it after Lucy of the song, they're wrapped up in Luciferianism. But then there was a paper I found where they're thinking that Lucy was actually a boy, and they've named him Lucifer, Lucy the Missing Link. So this thing, it just stinks of the Prometheus, the guy, the god who brings you fire, that they built all of the altars to, this idea of this technological advancement into becoming a god, that in any way that he can blaspheme and offend the living God with his narrative, which is fine. You want to believe that? Great. Here's my issue. Stop teaching the children and indoctrinating your children into this Babylonian mystery religion. That's my issue. Fine. If you want to worship the devil and that's your thing, stop involving the children. And Jesus was very specific about this. Do not damage the children. Do not teach them into a place where they're going to be in trouble, or it'd be better to have them.
Do not cause any of them to stumble.
Right. These people are going to be in for an awakening, a reckoning. Go ahead.
Yeah, what's interesting is you said it too, and I was even thinking about so I remember when you said that in a video and you were saying Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, and it was like, I felt so stupid that I didn't make that connection, but I guess I listened to the Beatles a long time ago. I might have thought about it now, but even like the in the sky with diamonds. So what are the diamonds in the sky?
Right.
The other stars. And so the story of Prometheus, you can say that's directly from the devil, but it's interesting. Like in the book of Enoch, in the story of the Watchers, that the Watchers came down, they took wives of the daughters of men, but they also gave men knowledge of things. And so they gave them knowledge of war, metal, the stars, magic, everything. And it's kind of like that. I believe that is, again, so that's, as Luke was saying earlier, about conspiracies. That is the conspiracy. And I believe that that is like why Jesus talks about the days of Noah that's what it's going to be like when he comes back. That if you kind of see, like they refer to the pre-flood time, the antediluvian age, as the golden age, when the gods gave them knowledge. And so so obviously in a very secular story, they're talking about giving chimpanzees like the ability to evolve to us, but it's like it's really like, you know, men learn things because we didn't know how to sin as well as we do now because the angels taught us new ways to kill each other, new ways to be sexually immoral,
barbecue,
to worship false gods. It's like that's what the knowledge is. And it's like, so again, like this is literally Satanism, Gnosticism, knowledge, gnosis. And where does it come from? It comes from the angels. But the funny thing you say is like, if you want to worship the devil, you want to worship Lucifer, then don't teach my kids about it. But it's like, this is what people, like most Christians, can't wrap their minds around, is they view it as we're dealing with angels. Well, we know biblically, we know that all the angels are not good, but they don't see them as like the red guy with the horns and the pitchfork and the tail. They're looking for the angel of light. And it's like, no, he's good. He gave us knowledge, tree of knowledge of good and evil. And obviously after that, you have the other rebellion of the Watchers, giving man every bit of knowledge about, this place as we got probably.
So this is jumping ahead in the script. I guess we're going to save the Babylonian reveal here for a minute, but you said you just watched the John D video. You and I talked about that however long ago, and you said you watched that. John D is associating with angels. He thinks they're angels. They teach him a new language, the Enochian language. He's getting all of this information. He's basically doing divination through crystal balls, and he's the angels tell them to do all these weird things. They end up having to do like a wife swap, and he's just messing with them. And eventually the angels were like, dude, we're demons. We've been demons this whole time. How did you not even know we were doing this? But check out, let me start with this. This is a little bit different than what we were going to do. We'll do the Babylon thing in a minute. But for the people that don't know, the Queen's Conjurer, the Science and Magic of Dr. John D. Doctor, funny. Bona fide, to Queen Elizabeth.
Doctor.
A fascinating portrait of one of the most brilliant, complex, and colorful figures of the Renaissance. Although his accomplishments were substantial, he became a trusted confidant to Queen Elizabeth, inspired the formation of the British Empire, shocker, and plotted voyages to the New World because he knew about America. Him and Francis Bacon knew about America, which they considered the New Atlantis. You were mentioning Atlantis a minute ago. Atlantis, we hear the story that it was this paradise. It was a utopia. And it was for the people in charge. It was a one world, highly technologically advanced civilization that pissed off the gods. No, the god, because it wasn't a utopia. It was a dystopia. It was the antediluvian society, which is actually, that information was was passed down from Solon, which is one of the first Egyptian priests, to Plato. A really interesting preservation of history with Atlantis. But anyway, so let's see, beyond his the political sphere, his intellectual pursuits range from the scientific to the occult. His mathematics anticipated Isaac Newton by nearly a century. His map-making, navigation, or critical exploration. He was also obsessed with alchemy, astrology, and mysticism. His library was one of the finest in Europe, compendium of thousands of volumes. Despite his powerful position and prestigious intellect, Dee died in poverty. Anyways, he gets into the rise and fall of this guy, where superstition collided with the new world of science and reason. This John Dee is every bit the poster child for this Babylonian scientific magic thing. There's actually no, you said the line is blurred. There's not even a line there. It was just repackaged to us as science. What it actually is Babylonian magic, and it always has been. I'll show this next one really quick. This is Magic and Demonology of Babylon. Okay, this is from a book called Myths and Legends of Babylonian and Assyria. This was written in 1917. Nothing new under the sun. It's 107 years old. We go down here to right here. The Chaldean magic was the precursor of European medieval magic apart from popular sorcery and witchcraft is instanced not only by the similarity between the systems, but the introduction into medieval magic of the names of Babylonian Assyrian gods of magic. So we got Molech and Beelzebub and Ishtar and all those names. So it goes down here and says that obviously of Babylonian origin, encountered in almost every work of the subject. Frequent allusions are also made to the wise men and necromancers of Babylon and to the stargazers of Chaldea. Right, we got the biblical magi. There were Babylonian astrologers potentially. So these ideas, the people looking at the stars, right, seeing what the stars mean. We got to look to the stars. What do you think NASA is? Like it's Babylonian magic. It's Babylonian astrology, and they are literally looking through their telescopes, saying, 14 million years ago, the universe created itself, and blah, 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 blah. There's nobody. The earth is just meaningless. It's not a privileged place. It's a giant universe that sucks, and the earth is an accident. So that's a part of this Babylonian magic. So to the stargazers of Chaldea, the conclusion is irresistible that ceremonial magic, as practiced in the Middle Ages, owed much of that to Babylon. Going down a step further, the roots of science. In these Babylonian magical records, we have the most complete picture of magic of the ancient world, wondrous story that is told by those, blah, blah, blah. And then it says, man's first gropings for light. For in these venerable writings, we must recognize the first attempts at scientific elucidation of the forces by which man is surrounded. Science, like religion, has its roots deep in magic. The version of science that we are in today is Babylonian magic. And we are taught that you can't question it. There, you have the very specific priests who will tell you what that means, the new revelations. You cannot question them, or you're a heretic. You will be banished. And the entire worldview is based on Babylonian magic. So I'm going to run through this, then we can wrap up on this. Okay, the Babylonian creation story, Enuma Elish. After the waters of Apsu and Tiamat mix, the gods Lamu and Lahamu, slime and mud, emerge. And from this pair comes the sky and the whole earth. According to the Babylonian creation myth, life came out of the mud. That's abiogenesis, right? If we were to look at where did life come from. Now, that's not just me like trying to make a connection that's not there. Watch this. Oh, did it stay on that same one? I got to do a window share instead. Hold on one second. Sorry, everybody. I had it on a tab. So window, this one here. Okay. Pop quiz. Who is the father of modern science? His name is Democritus. Democritus is considered by some to be the father of science, because he and his mentor Lysippus, whatever his name is, were both materialists. There's that word again. Or someone who believed that there were natural laws that governed all actions. Democritus was also remembered as the laughing philosopher, and among his fellow Abderians as the mocker. Okay, Democritus is the father of science because of his philosophic materialist viewpoint. Now, Democritus held, see if this sounds familiar to you. Democritus lived 500 years before Jesus. JT, let me know if this sounds like a similar creation account that we have. Democritus held that originally the universe was composed of nothing but tiny atoms churning in chaos until they collided together to form larger units, including the earth and everything on it.
Well, again, that's interesting, because it's like a lot of, like, you even go to like contemporary, or like where a lot of people give, like Copernicus and like Isaac Newton, they get a lot of credit for, upending like the religious view of the universe. And it's like, these guys weren't just looking through telescopes. I mean, obviously they were reading other sacred texts or texts that they believe were sacred to them. And so I think people need to understand the roots of that. It was like, it literally was not like these guys were just doing the science. These guys were all alchemists. These guys were all in the Pythagoreans club with the magic pentagrams and everything like that. Right. They were into sacred knowledge, sacred geometry, and that's where it flowed from. And it's like, it's kind of interesting as you were talking about NASA and the stargazing, like astrology. It's like the biblical understanding, or like at least the ancient understanding, would be like the angels are stars. So if like with the way they talk about the stars and give them give them reference, like again, they
looking to the stars for wisdom.
Like the way, wishing like as Disney wishing upon a star, and even anything but like the James Webb Telescope is the first time they had some pictures of that, obviously, which are not pictures, they're edited, whatever they are to sell a narrative. The first thing they say is, wow, doesn't that make us feel very insignificant that we're just like stardust like them, like we came from them? And you're like, so just think about that. If what the Bible would kind of describe as the angels being stars, they're the creation. And so they're literally giving credit to the creation for creating us, when, again, like there's nothing scientific about that. That is obviously
Just a worldview. It's just a
that's a religious view
right.
without them trying to say it. Again, like that's a magical view. But I do think it's interesting, like the John Dee, as Luke was talking about. I was watching something about him today, and this guy was like a very good scientist, but then he kind of got into some weird stuff, and it's like, no, that's who he always was. Again, so like if your goal is knowledge, obviously that knowledge in itself is not bad.
Mm-hmm.
Knowledge, but when you think you're going to gain some kind of salvation through knowledge, obviously that's when it becomes gnosis. When you think you can attain godhood through knowledge, that's Gnosticism. And so like that's the problem. It's like that if your ultimate goal is knowledge, that leads you to the devil. I mean, like, and so like it's funny how like that when they start to talk about the times of like Isaac Newton and Copernicus, and they were saying the church was so like the church thought all this was witchcraft. They thought math was witchcraft. It's like the guys who were scientists, you can look very clearly, were into witchcraft. Like, again, they blurred the lines, or maybe like the lines were always blurred, like between what is, like just obviously observing things and calculating things versus them seeking ever and more knowledge. And obviously guys like John Dee willing to do ritualistic things to get it.
I've got to share my screen here. You were talking about knowledge isn't a bad thing, and it's not. And we're going to get back to the Babylonian thing, because there's a crazy connection here in a minute. But knowledge, if your intention is to seek out the living God and know what he wants you to know, it's brilliant. If you're going to hack the universe and just go way off script and talk to fallen angels because you need to know, then you get into trouble. Check this out. This is the Hebrew word emet. I know it because I was thinking about, I wanted to name my son this. My wife says no, but it's in Hebrew, it's Aleph Mem Tav. Aleph is representative of the Father. There's a huge study we can do on this, but it's the ox, the strong, it's the authority. So Aleph. Tav is Yeshua, which is the door, which is the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet, completion, perfection, salvation. So the Aleph Tav is the Father and the Son. If you put a mem in the middle, which means water, you have Aleph Mem Tav, which is the word emet, which is the word truth. Now, the Hebrew alphabet, if you take the first letter, the middle letter, which is the mem, and the final letter, which is tav, Aleph Mem Tav, you get the word truth. So the whole Hebrew Bible, middle, was, is, and will be. This is who God is. He exists in those three states at once. If you take the was, is, and will be, the first, middle, and last letter of the Hebrew alphabet, you get the word truth. So God is the truth. The word of God is truth. Cool. It gets even cooler. You said you go looking for the knowledge and you remove God from it, and it becomes poisoned, corrupt, whatever. Mm-hmm. If you take the Aleph out of this equation, look at this. Aleph Mem Tav is truth, and you take God out of it, you take the Aleph out of it, and it's death.
Wow. That's pretty powerful right there.
So this is the problem with the John Dees and the fallen angels. You're removing God from it, and this is death, like legitimate death. I'm not talking about just dying, because you may or may not live long or whatever. But it says in the book of Jude that the fallen angels are in eternal judgment, chained up, scaring everybody because of how bad the judgment was. This is like true spiritual death. So you're leaguing with the fallen angels to get this hidden information that without God is death. Okay, so we know that.
It's the tree of knowledge. The tree of knowledge that God said don't eat from. Mm-hmm. What was the penalty?
Death.
It was death.
Yeah, but you could be like God. No, right.
Yeah,
okay.
Well, yeah.
So, okay, Democritus, the father of modern science. Democritus taught that the universe originally was composed of nothing but tiny atoms churning in chaos, the Big Bang, until they collided together to form larger units. They crashed together, bingo bongo, there's the Earth, including the Earth and everything on it. He taught the Big Bang, Democritus did. Maybe it ends there. No, it does not. Democritus, this guy lived 500 years before Jesus. Democritus
that's pretty
believed
crazy.
That humans originated in mud and lived at first as wild animals before slowly learning enough to become civilized. You think the theory of evolution is about science? You're just believing what Democritus believed. The universe created itself. We came from the mud, and we evolved from animals. This isn't science. This is Babylonian magic. Now, for the kicker. Democritus. Who was Democritus? we scroll down here. There he is, the laughing guy, whatever. The precise date and location of Democritus's birth is the subject of the debate. Sources claim he was born in Abdera, located in northern Greek province of Thrace, around 460 BC. Might have been 490 BC, whatever. It has been said that Democritus's father was from a noble family and so wealthy that huge surprise. The father of modern science was from an elite noble family. It's just never just a guy, right? Darwin came from the same kind of money. It's never just a guy. It's a guy with money tied to the power structure. Okay. He was so powerful that he received the Persian king Xerxes on the latter's march through Abdera during the Second Persian War. Xerxes is coming through. It's like, hey, Democritus' dad, have me over. Okay, cool. It is further argued, you aren't going to believe this, it is further argued that as a reward for his service, the Persian monarch gave his father and other Abderites gifts and left several magi among them. Democritus was apparently instructed by these magi in astronomy and theology.
How about that? You know, it's interesting. I was thinking as this coming from a Babylonian view of like, almost like, yeah, these monkeys that climbed out of the slime. To me, it's like, it's similar to like the Sumerian tales of like the Anunnaki. And it's like that the Anunnaki experimented with primitive life forms in order for them to be like us. And it's like, yeah, that story, it's like, again, that these stories actually came from some kind of a belief in angel worship, you know, like that's where it comes from.
So obviously the Anunnaki are the Nephilim, right? And then we end up getting the sons of Anak. I made that connection in the aliens video I did. Or
the Anunnaki are the angels,
right? And
then they experimented with us, and then they created Nephilim. I guess that's what always gets a little bit confusing, whether who's the angel in this story and who's actually the Nephilim.
Right. So it's my belief that the Anunnaki were the fallen angels acting as gods or whatever, but the idea that they were the ones that kickstarted this evolutionary thing, they took animals and turned them into like workers for them or whatever. That's the story of Lucy I was talking about. If I shared that Lucy video, she goes back in time as a demigod, and she touches the chimp Lucy, who now starts her evolutionary thing. I was going to mention that it's the Anunnaki story all over again, but it's this repeating story. And I love that you said it, not based on what they see with their telescope, because the James Webb looks out and sees an infinite universe. And you could look at that and go, how amazing is our God that he created this for the earth. And it says in the Bible, and he also created the stars. And it's one line, because that wasn't hard for him. This magnificent creation represents the power and might of God. It says in Psalms, the heavens declare the glory of God. So you could look at that picture and go, what an amazing creator we have. He is massive, infinite. You cannot even understand his potential. And we're seeing his creation is beautiful. No, they see it and they go, definitely we're not meaningless and whatever. So it's not about science. It's taking, I got to stress this. I can't stress it enough. I need everybody to hear this. It's taking the data that they find and fitting it into this Babylonian magic system. That's all it is. It's not science. It's a predisposition to disobeying the living God and the true history of our reality, which is the science of the Bible and the history of the Bible. Because of their own evil, wicked desires, they intentionally, deliberately forget. They've refused their birthright. They've refused the truth of this reality, and they've substituted it with basically getting in line with the enemy of God and teaching the children to believe in Babylonian magic, which is the antithesis to the Judeo-Christian scientific model that we have. And it's fact. Like I'm over.
It's interesting because I remember actually it was one time I was looking up that when they were saying like that the Photoshop person that in order to like make the James Webb Telescope pictures viewable had to do this in order to tell a story. And it's like, so obviously that's very clearly the story is that the stars are more important than us. We're insignificant. When, yeah, through the view of the truth, you would actually say, wow, what an amazing place that God created. And guess what? Out of all those things he created, we're not insignificant because he decided this place needed all those things and also a Luke.
Yep.
And I cared about creating him, stitched him together in his mother's womb, and a JT, and every one of you guys who are listening out there, you guys and gals, that God decided this place wouldn't be right without you. And it's like, doesn't that actually change the way you feel and the way you want to go about this place versus, yeah, that's like the one who says that you're not significant is that creates Jeffrey Dahmers,
Right.
who say, who cares? Like, obviously nobody will know what happened to me or all my victims. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, it's like when you know that you have a personal God who is unfathomable, mm-hmm. and you think like, wow, he did all that. He made me. I have something to live up to.
Yeah. I have value.
It's such a difference.
The creator of this reality, the one who created the heavens and the earth, who designed our consciousness and our DNA and built this beautiful immersive reality that we are in. He knows you. He knows you. He made you, like JT said. He said, I need a JT. I need a Luke. I need a you. He knit you in your mother's womb. And if you actually see the microtubules working in creating a human in the womb, it's knitting, exactly knitting. It's it looks like yarn knitting a human together. I fight with atheists all the time. I say fight. I debate with atheists all the time. It's really taxing. It's starting to get to me. I've been doing it for too long. But this idea of them saying, you will believe in the science and I don't want anything to do with your God. And it breaks my heart for God, because what does it say in John? That he came to his people and his people received him not. He came to his world and the world rejected him. I missed that up, but it's God came into this reality and we ripped out his beard hair and we punched him in the mouth and we hung him on a cross, and he let that happen so we could spend eternity with him. He loves us. This is our God, and this is our true identity and history. And the people that you trusted, and if you're a parent listening to me, I'm sorry that this is so pointed, but you were taught that if you were a good parent, it means that you would put your kid in school and you would get them a very advanced education. And forget about anything else, really. Nothing else really matters. You get them a good education. 70% of all college students disbelieve in the Bible. You have a 7 in 10 chance of your child not believing in the Bible. So what? They can have a degree. So that what? They can get a job that AI is going to take. We've been lied to, and we were told that we can't parent our children. We don't have the ability. We're not smart enough. That's not true. You're smart enough to teach your child. We were taught that you're weird if you don't put your kid in this system, and we handed our child over. Well, if you want to break your heart, go watch videos, YouTube videos of mothers having to drop their kids off at the school bus for the first time, bawling, trying to be reconciled by their husband. When the husband goes, "It's okay, honey." And she's like, "I gave my kid to that bus in that system." And then eventually that pain goes away. In this school system, they are teaching you Babylonian science, Babylonian magic. They're teaching you, I learned the Greek alphabet, alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta. I learned Egyptian history. I learned Roman. I didn't learn Judeo-Christian history. They are teaching you the narrative that is the antithesis to the God of the Bible, as though it's the kind of fact that you can't question. What are you going to do? What are we going to do, JT, get a bigger telescope and disprove them? Are we going to get a bigger particle collider? They have this system set up that we can't oppose, unfortunately. We're not going to be able to stop it. The only thing that we can do is withdraw consent. And if you are a parent and you are listening to me, you can homeschool your child. Get a smaller house. Understand you can teach them. Don't think that the only thing that matters is a high education. There's a lot of ways to make money in this reality. And when you hand your child over to this system and they teach your child this thing, it's your fault, unfortunately, because you let that happen. You have to, and it's weird. I didn't mean to go like so far off the rails here. I'm sorry for doing
this.
Good.
That's good. I mean, that's where it leads.
You will take your kid and your 5-year-old kid, 6-year-old kid, 2-year-old kid, whatever they say, and you will put the kid in this school system, and they will immediately start teaching them the Democritus Mystery Babylon belief system. The universe created itself. The earth created life. You're an animal, meaningless universe. They will teach your kid that. And if you're going to put them in that system, at least do your research, whether it's my content or other young earth creationists or whatever. At least equip the child to be able to engage with this, because they will get absolutely steamrolled, and the teachers will bully them and say, "You question me? You question me? You're stupid. You believe in the Bible?" They'll bully your child in front of the whole class and say, "Oh, you believe in the flood, don't you?" It's crazy what's going on there. It's a battle for the hearts and minds of men. We have to choose to serve God. As for me and my family, we serve God.
Amen, brother. You know what? That's actually good, because it's like, but if you are, and I know a lot of people are probably sitting in the home saying, "But I can't afford to put my kids through private schools. I got to work. I can't homeschool them." you know what you probably need to do then? You probably need to know enough about what they're being taught to be able to refute it. I mean, I think that that's the only other option is like
Right.
that, whether you do your own research, you look to content creators like Luke and obviously guys who have wrote books about the truth, or like, and obviously again, like this is part of peeling back the onion of the things we've been taught. And it's like that because we have been educated, you realize, wait a minute, like if that was not true, if when the school system teaches theories like they're facts and they don't ever caveat to say, hey, this is what our best guess is of this, they actually just teach you like it's stone cold law. Mm-hmm. Then you need to know that, like, obviously that's done in a way in order to, and again, like I know you said this before, science is about proving other science wrong, trying to can prove the norms wrong. Except you're not really allowed to question the science. Look, or I'm not. Luke's not allowed to question it, because that would be you're a science denier if you question the science. When literally, it's the antithesis is to say this is settled, right? Because that's really that's not science at all. So then when you find that fact out, you realize this is not science. This is trying to shape your worldview, and it leads to rebellion against God. And again, like that's what I was saying, like, so the more educated people have become in this world, especially like obviously, yeah, you said 70% of college graduates or people who attend college do not believe in a God now. Again, that's what I said. The evidence is, look at would anyone say the public discourse, the way things are going right now, is better? Is this the best time it's ever been in your lifetime? If the answer is no, well, I would point to this as a reason why, because we're just animals, we're insignificant, and ultimately the stars, stargaze, the stars are more important than we are.
Wish upon a star.
Obviously that's a lie.
Yeah, and you're gonna, like, I understand I came across a little bit harsh there, but there is nuance. And look, I get it. You can the people, we have to work 2 jobs. There is options. You can, like, this is going to sound crazy, but living with your parents isn't a bad thing. Multi-generational households, a way to not go so far into debt, maybe get rid of one of your cars. There's ways to make this happen. And I know that's hard to hear, but if you have to put your child in the education system, you then have to be the authority and live your life in a way that the children see that your walk is legitimate. We have this problem in parenting where we basically outsource parenting, including outsourcing spiritual authority. It's like, yeah, well, the teacher teaches my kid to be smart. I don't have any involvement in that. I see my kid for a couple hours a night. And then the guy at the church teaches my child about Jesus and whatever. And I'm just kind of like, I work, like I serve mammon. It's what I do. And if you can walk the walk, if you can, they don't care what you say, they care what you do. Honor your wife, honor your husband. Don't be a materialist. Christians, we have to stop being materialists. Like, yes, we need food. Great. We don't need the nicest person. We don't need the biggest house. We don't need the newest car. Jesus said to store your treasures in heaven. He said that, not on the earth. And he was true. Like what he said, everything was true. He is the truth. Everything that was there at his time did rust and did corrupt and is gone. He wasn't kidding. It did. It happened. But people, you can store your treasures in heaven. So there's a way to do it where you can be nuanced, and you can, there's content creators, there's books, there's homeschool curriculum that teaches creation from a look at how God did this. And you still learn the science. Look, you can learn how science works and not believe in the Big Bang, despite what the people on TikTok say that how can you be on your cell phone if you don't believe in the Big Bang? You can learn how science works. And there is a differentiation between how science actually works. The laws of physics, electromagnetism, the laws of gravity, these kind of things, that is science. Speculative origins isn't science. It's a belief system. And we know this because science is testable, it's observable, testable, and repeatable. And ain't no one observing, testing, or repeating the Big Bang or abiogenesis or Darwinian evolution. They're absolute belief systems.
That's dogma. Mm-hmm. And I think we should probably close it on that. But I love that you brought it back to the materialism thing, where it's like that. The only things you can see matter. Mm-hmm. The only things you can see and touch matter, except for the things we tell you about that are true. Right. Like the stuff that you can't actually see. Don't worry, we're telling you the truth about that. But as you were saying, even like to apply what you're saying in the materialism about, like, well, I can't afford these things, so what am I going to do? And it's like, well, obviously Jesus said, don't worry about what you wear.
Right.
Don't worry about what you eat. You know, if you seek first the kingdom, God, all these other things will be added unto you. Because like, just like as Abraham left, you know, left all that he had, and then God blessed him materially as well, because he wasn't seeking that in the land of Canaan. He was going out there to do it. And that's everything Jesus says. It's like, just think about when he fed the 5,000, he said, you think this is a big deal? This bread is not a big deal. The bread of life is what you need. And so he's always bringing it back. And he's like,
right.
They're expecting him to be a conquering king. And he's like, my kingdom is not of this world.
Amen.
So again, so I do believe that God rewards faithfulness in the fact that maybe you think like, I don't think I can do it. And it's like, yeah, you know, God honors that kind of heart where it's like, I'm putting my kids first over what the state is doing. Because the state's going to say, oh no, you got to work. Obviously you got to work 3 jobs. I mean, look how expensive everything. When God's saying like, do you think that's too hard for me? Just think about when, I love the story when they're asking Jesus and Peter to pay the temple tax. And he's like, Peter's like, should we pay it? And he's like, Jesus like, cast a line over there. Catches a fish, pulls the coin out of the mouth, pays the thing.
Right.
That is not hard for God.
Right.
Like money is not hard for God. So yeah. So obviously God can do all, you know, we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. We can make it any way that God wants us to. And, but on that note, I think obviously we can't end better than that. Luke, tell us where we can find you at, and what you're working on.
Well, currently you can still find me on my YouTube channel, although I just received another strike, so we'll see how that goes. But the YouTube channel is Voice of Reasons with an S. There is a Voice of Reason. I'm the Voice of Reasons because we have multiple reasons. That's the idea. TikTok is Voice of Reasons Official too. You can find our website if it's hard to find, because really we do well on TikTok, but YouTube, I can't find my videos. You can email me at voiceofreasonsofficial@gmail.com, and I can send you any of these links. And we also have a website, the same thing, voiceofreasons, plural, official.com. So you can go any of those things, voiceofreasonsofficial.com, voiceofreasonsofficial@gmail.com, or try to find us on YouTube. Look for this face and a crazy man yammering about how God created this reality.
Yeah, and absolutely. So obviously all those links, I'll share them on the and on the description. So if you guys are looking for Luke, you guys will have no problem finding him. And obviously, like I said, we had some marathon live sessions, so we could have gone. We're trying to keep this brief for brevity's sake.
This is the shortest time we've ever talked. Even a phone call this is by far the shortest amount of time we've ever spoken. That's
a fact. So obviously you're welcome back on the show. I can't wait. I'll have you back on, and we'll get, you know, like, so obviously this is a good brief overview of like the science, but we could go on forever, and we could talk about a million things.
I had 3 pages we didn't even get into. So yeah, we'll do it again. And I really appreciate you having me on, JT. God bless your ministry.
Of course, man. Obviously, guys, thank you, Luke. And obviously, thanks to all you guys. Obviously, all my links are in the description too. If you guys want to check out Ancient Angels, once again, the link's in the description. And I appreciate all you guys. Like, share, subscribe. Luke's stuff. Love you guys. God bless.
God bless.